Every Christmas, I like to dig through the movies that I can find and see what shows Christmas brings. Often a lot of offbeat shows that you can only tolerate in December. Let's take a look at some of these finds that I found this year. First movie I found was Ultimate Christmas Present. It was released in 2000. It's a Disney Channel show. It's rated G. It's a kind of a tween, kind of a light comedy. Here's the basic plot. Allie tries to avoid working on an essay and kind of hopes for snow in LA. After school, Allie and her friend Sam stumble upon a cabin in the woods where they kind of take a shortcut home. An old man lives in the cabin and he's working on some sort of device that doesn't work quite right, so the old man dumps it in the trash. Allie takes the device home and starts playing with it, and soon she finds out that it can create weather. A light bulb goes off in her head and she decides to try and make it snow to avoid the essay. Well, the old man is Santa, and this is his weather machine. Why he has it? Don't know. The show kind of ignores that. The rest of the movie is about Santa trying to get the device back and the chaos the snow creates. Alright, let's take a look at some of the rougher points of this show. One, they decided to invert the elves to making them tall and middle-aged adults that are clumsy and absent-minded. They show them as being tech-smart, but overall more like Dumber and Dumber. Oh, they're just rough with the lines and very clueless. The weatherman goes from being a character of sympathy to a bad guy, stealing the weather machine. And his wish at the end, well, I don't know. I would rate it as watchable but not great. It may entertain the kids for a few, but better have some backup. Alright, the next movie we're looking at is Deck the Halls, which was released in 2006. It's PG and a comedy. Matthew Broderick and Danny DeVito are not a combination I would have thought to put together, but for Deck the Halls, that's what they had to work with. Steve is played by Matthew, and he's a Christmas-loving dentist in a small town. He's getting ready for Christmas with his many traditions that he has with his family when a new neighbor moves in. This neighbor is named Buddy. He's played by Danny. He's basically kind of a mismatch with his wife and his kids. And Buddy's started a new car salesman job, which apparently he's good at, but this is not demonstrated, just kind of implied. He seems to have no passion for it. However, after seeing a satellite view of his neighborhood, for some reason, it's not real clear, he gets the idea that he wants to light up his house like Clark Griswold. With the excess lights and sound and extra stuff that's going on, it drives Steve nuts. Steve and Buddy start to have conflicts. This causes Steve to keep wreaking more and more havoc on himself. And Buddy keeps making his show bigger and bigger since it's not registering on the satellites. For Buddy, it becomes an obsession, while Steve becomes obsessed with taking out Buddy. In the end, both of them lose their families and their reputations, so Steve has to kind of set aside his differences to work out the issues that they both caused. For rating, I put this at a bit painful to watch. The jokes are pretty stale and predictable, with not great delivery. I think the characters are miscast. These stars seem to have great careers, but this isn't their best work. When Buddy starts to kind of turn on Steve and forces him to buy a car, this seems more of a match for Danny DeVito's style, and much closer to the characters he plays. The rest of the family members are just like decorations in the movie. They don't do much of anything. I would say toss this into the background of a party that's not paying attention to the show, maybe playing games or talking or something, then it might work. Our next film is Richie Rich's Christmas. This was released in 1998. This is also known as Richie Rich 2, which is based on a comic book character. It's rated G. I read this has a similar plot to A Wonderful Life, but I would call that a big stretch. Richie is a rich kid that is lamenting the fact that his family does a big community event for Christmas every year, and he just wants to play with his friends. But before the event, another rich kid, Reggie, is quite a brat, and he has a run-in with Richie and decides to get back at Richie. So Reggie steals a remote to a giant sled that Richie's going to use to deliver presents to orphans. Richie has no control of the sled, so it just kind of runs amok through the town and then finally drives off a cliff. Richie and his butler jump to safety before it goes over the edge, but the butler's injured and Richie runs for help, but the whole town just hates him and is completely mad. Richie has an inventor guy who's living in his mansion. It's a very big place. The inventor turns a washing machine into a wish machine. And Richie tried it earlier and he calls into the machine, I want a pizza pie. But then he gets a pigsty. However, now Richie's upset and he doesn't want to be Richard Rich anymore, so he yells in the machine, which kind of sucks him into a new reality. At this point, I completely blacked out. When I came to, I found Reggie was flying like slowly and awkwardly in the mansion, and Richie and Reggie were fighting. Richie finds the wish machine again, and then says, I want to be Richard Rich again. Well, we go back to the original reality, and we find that everyone who was worried about Richie, and they were all perfectly fine with him. No one seems mad. I don't see any explanation for the attitude turnaround, but we see the butler's in a wheelchair, so I assume we're in the same reality. Oh well. They started singing Christmas movies, and then they wrapped it up. Now, looking at Wikipedia, I see that they skipped a scene where Reggie admits that he was causing the trouble. So that might explain why everybody was fine with him. Well, is it watchable? Make sure you're extremely well rested. Otherwise, this is some, rough form with the plots and the dialogue. And I'm left with a hole because of my blackout, but I have no desire to fill it. Well, on to the next one. The next one here is Man vs. Baby. It was released just this year, 2025. It's rated, it's NA, but probably put it around G. It's a 4-part series. It stars Rowan Atkinson in his second movie playing the character named Trevor. The first movie was The Man vs. Bee. Trevor is a bumbling character that gets himself into trouble as he's house sitting. Trevor's bumbling reminds me of Mr. Bean. However, Trevor's is kind of kind-hearted and helpful, whereas Mr. Bean tends to be selfish and self-centered. The story takes place around Christmas time, and Trevor, who's divorced, is looking forward to spending another Christmas with his daughter. However, her mom has other plans, and Trevor tries to push it out of his mind as he's helping the children, at least with some children with the Christmas pageant. Trevor finds a baby on the doorsteps of the auditorium and assumes it's playing for baby Jesus. During the play, he gets a call for a job to do a house sitting for Christmas for £1,000, which is what he needs for his daughter's college. So he tries to get the job. However, after the play, no one picks up the baby, so he's now stuck with it. No matter what he tries, he can't seem to get rid of the baby, so he just takes it along with him on the job. The rest of the show is kind of about Trevor juggling the baby while at the same time doing this house sitting. I rate this one watchable and generally lighthearted funniness, but there's some awkward bits, like there's a homeless family living in the basement of the apartment and they're trying to steal food from the penthouse. It just kind of felt like they shoehorned that in. And all the diaper changing with scarves, I'm not sure why he did that. The diapers are nappies, as British would call them. I don't know why he just didn't buy some right away. Eventually get some. But out of the 4 movies in this review, this one's probably the most watchable. Now, time for a few honorable mentions. Maybe I'll do some bigger reviews on these later. The first one is Ocean's 11. This is the original one from 1960s. It starts off at Christmas because the heist is going to be around New Year's. The next one is the drama strain. The senator in the movie is played by Eric Christmas. It's a stretch, but hey, 'tis the season. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you find another rough one to share for the holidays. I'll see you, and thanks for watching.